Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is September 24th, and right now we are looking at the infrared satellite imagery. You can see BC, Washington, Oregon here. We are ridge building, folks. We're going to warm up here for the next few days. As you can see, the active weather mainly over the Aleutians, Gulf of Alaska. This will eventually try to make its way towards the Pacific Northwest as we go on in through mid and later this week. We'll check out that potential as we go here. I wanted to show you this here really quick. Check out the evolution of Fiona as it moved up the east coast here. You can see that cold air really wrap around the system, join in with the system, and turn this into a mid-latitude cyclone. It was a hurricane all the way up to the point where it really hit the islands. You could probably debate that, whether it was actually a hurricane or not, but a very strong system did some damage out there across Nova Scotia. Almost a direct hit on Sable Island. As you can see, that eye kind of dissipate as it crossed over it and into Nova Scotia. But very impressive system there. You're probably hearing a lot about that on social media this morning. Now, taking a look here, all attention will turn to Tropical Storm Ian out here, and this potentially could move into the Gulf of Mexico as a major hurricane. So if you have any interest in Florida Panhandle up the East Coast there, heads up for that. You got a few days to plan here still, but a very concerning situation as a possible major hurricane could be entering the Gulf of Mexico there. Never a good thing. Now, back to the Pacific Northwest, Medford, Oregon here. Check out some of these temperatures coming for Monday, probably the warmest day across the region here. Look at this, 95 potentially for Medford. Much cooler along the coast for Gold Beach and Brookings, as you can see here. But just a heads up for probably the last hot period down here through Oregon. But again, the overnight lows are much, they're much cooler at this time of year, and we're not going to stay at these temperatures for more than a couple hours, of course, across the regions. You can't really call it a heat wave at this time of year. You're cooling down pretty good as we get towards the evening hours and definitely overnight hours as we go. So nothing like what we were getting in the summertime. But now looking at Seattle, you can see last couple days right at average 70 and 69. This low-hanging record high is probably going to fall here, set back in 2006, 78. September 26, we are probably going to shatter that record. We're probably headed towards about 81, 82 for SeaTac as we go on in through Monday, September 26th. And check out our rainfall deficit for September, just 0.02 of an inch of rain. The normal is 1.61, so abnormally dry September continues. Checking this out, this is the Bolt Creek fire, still producing smoke. You can see it kind of coming down slope, a little bit easterly component there with the wind, bringing this towards the Puget Sound right now. And that's what we're going to be dealing with the next few days. Looks like at times we're going to have a weak easterly component here, potentially all the way down to the surface, bringing that smoke into the Puget Sound. The high resolution rapid refresh is not showing much fire smoke being produced by the Bolt Creek fire here. So it's kind of interesting that it's showing that, and you can see a little bit of fire smoke moving down into eastern Washington here, but not too bad overall. And warm temperatures are on their way here for the next few days. Checking it out at 100-meter wind speed. Just want to kind of show you the afternoon onshore north-northwest component might hold that back and clear us out a little bit during the afternoon. But as you can see in the morning, we kind of get that easterly component across the area here, potentially bringing a little bit of surface smoke down in towards the Puget Sound in western Washington. Sunday afternoon, you'll see that flow reverse north-northwest as we get the sea breeze activity going on here. And then offshore as we go on into Monday morning. Again, we're going to continue that on Monday during the day, and then Tuesday potentially during the morning as well. And that's right at the surface. Taking a look at 2,500 feet, a little bit higher up, the flow is a little bit more easterly. So you can hear Saturday morning, Sunday morning, Sunday after late morning right here. Then as we go into Monday morning, you can plainly see it here as well. So just because the winds at the surface are not plainly out of the east, some of these winds just off the surface are going to be, and that could actually mix down during the day into the Puget Sound. So it's yet to be seen just how bad the surface smoke is going to get around the Puget Sound, but you can see Monday early morning here, pretty good easterly component there. It continues. And as we go through Tuesday, not a strong flow, but still kind of that easterly component could be introducing smoke at that point. Then as we move into mid next week here, we're going to start to kick the flow back onshore again as a system potentially approaches. Now look at the HRRR as we scroll through here. This goes out 48 hours. It's not showing the Bolt Creek fire at all here producing much smoke. So we're just kind of left on our own here as far as what kind of direction and whatnot this forest fire smoke is going to take. As you can see on that visible satellite imagery, that fire is still producing smoke. Now looking here, 700 millibars European, you can see Fiona here as it moved across Nova Scotia. And you can see our nice ridge build here across Pacific Northwest. Here comes that next Gulf of Alaska trough. Model's been showing this kind of moving in and bringing a system. I'm a little bit skeptical here that this trough is going to be that progressive and move into the region here, but fingers are crossed. This actually, the last European kind of trended towards a little bit more precipitation for Western Washington, places the Pacific Northwest. So hopefully this comes to fruition here and we can get some meaningful precipitation into the Pacific Northwest. Bit of a bounce back here, then maybe a system way off into the future here, but we're getting off into fantasy land there. Now taking a look here, the 06Z, this is 24-hour running total precipitation. You can see the nice weather, dry through Monday. Here we go on into Tuesday morning. System starts to approach. Here's Tuesday afternoon, and you can see 90 hours out. Here comes some precipitation here. Now, as we go ahead and look back towards yesterday afternoons, this one goes out a little bit further here, as you can see, and you can see by Wednesday morning the potential for some precipitation on Oregon, Washington coast. Vancouver Island kind of bullseyed here, but it does get into the Puget Sound, maybe Willamette Valley a little bit. Southwest BC kind of a winner in this event as we go, but it would be a system that would cool us down, potentially some beneficial precipitation for some portions of the Pacific Northwest. Looking way out into the extended, maybe another system rolls through here, but that's all the way out into the next weekend. But look at that, some pretty good precipitation amounts for Vancouver Island, Western BC, and on into the Olympic Mountains there is showing up. So cross your fingers there. Now taking a look here, this is the European on the left versus GFS on the right. There goes Fiona out here towards Nova Scotia. But you can see our ridge across Pacific Northwest building here. And that starts to slide east a bit here as we go into Monday. Probably the warmest day across the region here for most areas on Monday. But you can see that ridge kind of pushing off to the east quite rapidly. That's why I'm a little skeptical. I'm thinking maybe this might hang out a little bit more and not allow this next system to come in quite as rapidly. But hey, you go against the models and you get burned a lot of times. And you can see that system kind of moving into the Pacific Northwest, GFS, with a little bit more robust of a system here on the right as we go out 120 hours. A little bit of a ridge bounces back. Pretty good model agreement there, actually. And then you can see the next trough, the Gulf of Alaska, move towards the northwest here. GFS likes to swing that thing through there a little bit more as the European keeps a bit of a stronger low a little bit further offshore. But anyway, and as we look back down into the Gulf of Mexico, you can see the GFS on the right here brings that into the Gulf a little bit more. The European kind of steering that into the western panhandle of Florida there. So that is going to be the big newsmaker here coming up for the next few days across the country. Looking at Seattle here, this is the 26th here. Look at this. All the models are pretty much showing an 80-degree day coming up here. The last warm days probably of the year for SeaTac. I mean, we could get another warm day here. There is a little bit of a signal here for another warm day or two maybe, but this is all the way up into the 80s here, and that record is likely going to fall there September 26th. Kind of interesting. And then as we go through Tuesday too, another nice day, probably in the upper 70s, maybe even getting towards 80 degrees for Seattle. Spokane, check that out as we go on in through Tuesday, probably the last really warm day here before we start to cool back down, getting a little bit more seasonable through the extended. Kamloops up there in eastern British Columbia, some upper 70s possible on Tuesday. Portland International, probably definitely on the warmer than Seattle, as you can see, some potential upper 80s as we go through Sunday, Monday, another warm day Tuesday before we go back down towards seasonable temperatures here midweek coming up. This is probability of 2-meter max temperatures, 80 degrees or warmer here. And as we go through Saturday, you can see a little bit to the Willamette Valley there, a little bit in the Columbia Basin here. And as we go on into Sunday afternoon, look at the Willamette Valley, a virtual lock for an 80-degree day. Most areas, Columbia Basin as well, eastern Oregon getting in on that activity. And as we go on into Monday, there's the warmest day. As you can see, some pretty high odds for Seattle hitting 80 degrees, or SeaTac anyway. Columbia Basin, eastern Washington, down through eastern Oregon, entire Willamette Valley as well. And as we go on into Tuesday, you'll notice that does still exist for the Willamette Valley into the Puget Sound, probably the last warm day there. And then you can see eastern Washington, eastern Oregon, one more quite warm day. And here we go on in through Wednesday. That starts to push off to the east a bit more. And Thursday, you can see much more seasonable temperatures return to the area here. Now, this is looking at Klamath Falls here. As you can see, potentially an 80-degree day there on Monday as well. Now, looking back towards precipitation chances here. This is yesterday afternoon's run for Quilly. You can see maybe some precipitation coming up there. This timing would be sometime during the day Wednesday. We'll continue to watch that. You can see some of these runs are just all over the place. Look at the control run producing more than an inch in 24-hour period, but the mean is much less. So there is not good model agreement here as you get off through the extended, which is to be expected. But you can see the mean and the control generally agree, maybe a quarter of an inch, 3/10 of an inch of rain coming through here on the day Wednesday into Thursday with that next system. Here's the newest European, kind of showing a few tenths of an inch of rain are possible here. The mean is at 2/10 of an inch, and you can see the control is much less here, just a few hundredths. So it's still quite uncertain as we look out here into mid and next week. This is for Seattle, Tacoma here. You can see I'm doing a little fantasy windstorm thing here. Look at a couple little 50-mile-per-hour gusts showing up there in the extended. Again, you can see the vast majority of the ensemble runs just show light winds here at this time. This is purely for entertainment purposes only. We start getting excited when we start seeing a lot more of these showing up here in the real world, but if you're really hard up for looking at some fantasy weather, you can look at these individual ensemble member runs here, pick them out and see where they cross these low pressure systems here into Western Washington. But purely entertainment at this point. So here's the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook here. This is for beginning of October here. Looks like a little bit above average for much of the Pacific Northwest. But now check this out, the 8 to 14 day precipitation outlook. Looks like Western Washington, Western Oregon up into BC. Starting to pick up on that signal there for some systems sliding through the region here in the extended here for early October. So fingers crossed there. We could really use the rainfall. As you guys saw yesterday, we are in an abnormally dry situation across Western Washington, portions of Western Oregon as well. So we'll take any precipitation we can get. Anyway, we'll do this again tomorrow. We'll try to pinpoint some of those systems here and see what the model trend brings us here as far as precipitation chances across the Pacific Northwest later on through next week. But enjoy these warm days coming up here. We're much drier than normal, but not much you can do about it. You just kind of have to take what Mother Nature gives you here. So hope you guys are enjoying these videos, and we'll do this again tomorrow. I'll talk to you then.